Hey, welcome to the video. Today we talk again about recycle views in Kivy. We follow on from a previous video where we showed you how to do recycle views with labels. Today we talk about recycle views with buttons. So we start from the password recovery app from the previous video and we improve it to have buttons and an extra screen. Check it out.
So we ended our previous video with this app, which is a Wi-Fi network password recovery. So you can recover the passwords of your Wi-Fi networks. And it resulted in this recycle view, which had 3 buttons because my laptop had been on 3 networks. And it then shows you the network name and the password in these 3 labels. So these are labels. If I click on it, nothing happens. So what we want to do is improve this app such that these are buttons instead of labels, and the button only shows the network name, and only when you click the button will you get the password. So if someone's looking over your shoulder on the first screen, they won't see the password. So this is what the new app will look like. You have your buttons, and if you click the button, you will get another screen. So this is a new screen we need to create, which has a label that says network, and then it gives you the network name, and a label that says password, and then the password. So let's build that. Now I'm going to start on the Kivy side because I need a new screen. Let's do the new screen first. So I'm going to call this password screen or PW screen. And then I'm going to make this a box layout. Within there, I will create 2 grid layouts, one for each row of labels. So this grid layout has 2 columns, and it will have a label, and the first label that just showed the word network. And then there's a second label which will hold the network name. So I'm going to give that an ID because I will need to refer to that later on. So I'm going to call that label network. I'm not going to give it a text property because that will be handled with Python code, but I am going to change the font size to 50 just to make it a little bit bigger. So that is my first row, if you like, the network label and then the network name. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for a second row. But then this is called password, or that will be on the label, password. And then the ID here will be password. So that's my screen. I then need to add this screen to a screen manager. I actually don't have a screen manager yet, so I'll create one. Screen manager, which has my RV screen as a first screen, and then my password screen once I click the buttons. So that should take care of the screen. Now, the other thing I want to change is, well, my RV, where is my recycle view down here? As view class, it has RV label. Now, I don't want this to be labels. I want this to be buttons. So I'll just rename that to button. Everything else I'll leave the same. My data will come from the same RV data list, but of course we will update the code for that in a second. But this RV button, Kivy needs to know what that is, and that we defined up here. So it used to be RV label. We just changed that to RV button. And I'm going to leave the format exactly as it was. So those are the changes in Kivy. Scroll all that out of the way and let's make some changes in Python. So first, well, I'm going to need buttons, right? So from button, I'm going to import button. There we go. Now, the RV screen class is still there. I'm going to also need the password screen class. which inherits from screen. Okay, and that's not going to do anything for now. The RV label class, well, that we no longer need because we're doing buttons, so I'm going to replace that with RV button, and that will inherit from button. Now we will come back to this function later because the button clearly have an action, and I need to implement the code to make happen whatever needs to happen when we click the button. But first, I would like to populate the recycle view on the first screen with the network names. So the recycle view I've set up with the instance property way of doing things. In the previous video, I showed you another way using Kivy properties. I prefer instance properties, so that's what I'm going for in this video. So this is the RV data list that my Kivy file was referring to in my RV. Just let me quickly show you that again. So my RV is saying its data will come from self RV data list. Self here refers to RV. So in the class RV, we need a RV data list. Right, so in the class RV, we have self RV data list. And the format in which this data is given to the recycle view needs to be a list with dictionaries for each element in your recycle view. So in the previous video, that was for each label. In this video, that is for each button. And I've left a comment up here. So what I want to show in my recycle view is, firstly, it will have to be the network name. And then on the second screen, I want to show the password. So I'm going to pull through both the network name and the password into my RV data list. And that makes it easier then for me to retrieve all the information from that list. So the RV data list at the moment actually does not have that information in the right format. So let's have a look at this code. So this is the code that retrieves the Wi-Fi passwords in Windows. Now we've covered this in detail in a previous video, and I include the link in the description. But effectively, we have this shell command, and we use subprocess to run that shell command, which gives us all the network names. We use a regex to extract those names from the output, and then we loop through all the network names to apply this new command, which will then show us the passwords. And again, we apply regex to extract the passwords and stick that in the output. Now, the output of this function is a list. I've put that up here. And you can see that I return result, and result is here where something is appended. So this is a list. Now, the list currently holds an F string. For each of my networks, it will hold an F string that holds both the network name and the password. All I want to do is replace this one F string with a list. So I want to have a list that shows me the network name and the password instead of a string. And then I can refer to both elements individually. So let's, instead of having an F string, let's make that a list. So I will show network name, and I will show password in a list. And actually, I will use the same slicing trick here, where I slice off the last character, which is not a printable character. So now the list that is returned by getRVData has itself lists as elements. So for each button, there will be a list of which index 0, or the first element, is a network name, and index 1, or the second element, will be the password. So that's what I will use up here in my list comprehension. So instead of just having one element, which is text, I'm going to also extract second element into my dictionary, and the key, I'll just call that, no, not text, text password. And then what I want is the element with index 0, which is the password. And what that gives us is this. It looks clearly very similar because we haven't changed that much, but these have become buttons. And if I click the button, well, nothing happens because I haven't implemented the code yet to do what the button should be doing. But you can see that we've gotten rid of the password here, and we've just showing the network name. So if someone looks over your shoulder, they won't be able to see the password. So now the next thing to do is to implement the code behind this button to open up the next screen and then populate the labels with the network name and the password name. So we will need to implement some code behind the on release functionality of our RV button. So on release. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to open up the next screen and we need to populate the values of those labels. Now, let me open Kivy up again or slide it over a little bit so we can see the IDs that I will be referring to. So let's have a look at the password screen, this one here. So we have a label with ID label network, and we have a label with ID label password, and these I will need access to. So what I need to do is I need to get to the screen manager, and then once I'm in the screen manager, I can get to the PW screen, and from there I can reach all the children through their IDs. So what I mean by that is because of this ID, I can pick up the label network and then populate its text property. Okay, so how do we do that? Let me quickly copy that because that's a little bit quicker. So we define a screen manager. Now you do that by first defining the app and then get the running app method. Once you have that, you have the app. From the app, you call the root. And from the root, you call all the IDs. And from the IDs, you call SM. So for that to work, I actually need to make a change to the code. Talking through it, I now realize that I have not given my screen manager an ID yet. So what this app is doing, it says app get running app, which brings you to the app, right? Then it says go to the root. Now the root is my box layout. It then says look at all the IDs and pick up SM, but SM does not exist yet. So I need to give this screen manager an ID. It's called SM. So once we're then in the screen manager, I need to make this a little bit bigger. We then call the get screen functionality to open up the PW screen. And what is a PW screen? Well, again, talking through it, I realize I haven't given this screen a name yet. So the name of that screen is, well, PW screen. So it then picks up that screen. Then that takes us up here to PW screen. And then from PW screen, it then picks up all the IDs. And from the IDs, I need label network. And from that one, I'm going to set the text to self.text. And which property is that? Well, that is a property we defined in the RecycleView. So in the RecycleView, we had something called text. And we also in the RecycleView have a property called text password. So then we do the same thing for the password. So SM screen manager, get to the PW screen, pick up the IDs of all its children, one of which is label password. And let me just check I gave that the right name. I did not. There you go. So label PW. This is what happens when you copy. Then from that label, you set the text to self.text underscore PW. So self is the button here, and the properties of the button are defined in the RecycleView because it's the RV button, right? The RV button is defined using this list comprehension, because in the Kivy file we said that the RecycleView was showing RV buttons. So the properties in this list comprehension will apply to RV buttons. So therefore, this button understands what text underscore PW is, because that is this one here. Okay, and then we switch to PW screen. Now this is important because in the screen manager we have the PW screen in there, right? So let's show you this again. So this PW screen is created when the screen manager is first run. This is before it knows what this is. This is before you click the button. Okay, so what you want to do first is you want to update these text properties for both labels and only then switch to the PW screen. So what we have now is the same first screen, and when you click on it, you get your second screen with here the network and there the password. So we can try that for another network. So this network here, and then you get this, and you get the second password. So there you go. That is an example of how to use RecycleViews in Kivy with buttons, and we've linked it to our Wi-Fi network recovery app. I hope you found that useful, or at least interesting. If you did, please consider leaving a comment or liking the video, or even subscribing to the channel. That would be much appreciated. Any other comments, always welcome. Thank you for your time. See ya. Bye.